We are expected to learn more about a deadly shooting at a soccer complex in Savannah. Emma.
The hunt is on for 2 people after a shooting involving a baby stroller.
The only common theme in all of these shootings appears to be
gun violence.
Violence has no place in our city.
A barrage of bullets in a Savannah neighborhood.
How do we fix this? Because right now I need answers.
I'm Anthony Burton, and I'm your law and order candidate for Records Court Judge here in Chatham County.
On Tuesday, March 22nd, Anthony Burton was unexpectedly fired by Chatham County District Attorney Shalina Cook Jones after 7 years without incident.
I had told Shalina before I announced that I was going to run in the summer that I was going to run. And, she came in the office and I told her, you're the elected person. These are the plans that I have. You need to know about it. And, if you want to fire me, if you want me, work for a while and quit at a certain date, let's work it out because this is what I'm doing. And she was very supportive at the time. I think the first thing she said was, congratulations for making this decision to run. I was like, thank you. I do think that she didn't know that I was going to be running as someone, law and order, as someone that is upset with the rising crime rates, and violent crime. And, I never really heard much else about it from her. And moving forward, I post things on Facebook for my campaign, I go to functions, I go and talk with people, I answer questions, I give my personal number out to just about anyone that wants to call, because, if you have a question, come ask me. I want to tell you why I think I'm the best for the job. I really think of campaigning as, a job interview. It just happens to be with 200,000 people instead of one. But I had posted on Tuesday morning, it was one of those apps like the neighbor apps where people can talk about, crime, or I found a dog or something like that. And it was a post over in Ardsley Park that someone had put up. I don't know who it was. You don't have any names or anything. It's just like neighbor 42976. And they had said, paraphrasing, I don't remember it exactly. I can pull it up if you want to know exactly what it was. But their post was, I've lived in this neighborhood for years. I just heard 8 rapid-fire gunshots. I've lived here for forever, and I've never experienced this kind of thing. And my post was attached to it, and I was like, there's a shooting every week, if not every night. Crime is out of control. And in my personal opinion, a lot of it is directly related to our bonds that we're giving out for people that I do not believe should be getting them per what the law requires. And I suppose that, no big deal. So Shalina comes by my office, and at the time I didn't think it was a big deal or confrontational, adversarial, or anything like that. It was basically like, we saw your post, why are you talking about crime and shooting being up? We're doing a great job here. The DA's office is out there in the community, and we're really doing our best to fight crime, and everything's going hunky-dory.
You are not just the good parts of your life. You are not just the things that went really well or the ideal parts of your life. You're the good parts and the not so good parts, right?
Yeah.
And until we get honest about telling the whole story, we don't really have a full understanding of each other and who we are. And then we run into different kinds of trouble.
Like I said, it wasn't confrontational or anything. So I was just like, well, I'm running on law and order. So when there's a shooting and stuff like that, I think that's what I think my constituents would care about. I'm looking at this app. That's what they're talking about. So these are the things that I want to focus on, because these are the things that I think I can help Chatham County with. And that was the end of the conversation. But I still don't know why I was fired. I don't know if that conversation had anything to do with it at all. But at about 5:15 that day, I got a call from her secretary who said, DA Jones wants to see you in her office. And I was like, it's 5:15. I'm not there, and I'm about to go. I was going to a neighborhood association for the downtown neighborhood association. And I was like, I got this event, like, if she really wants to talk to me today, I'll be done in an hour and I'll come back, or we'll do it in the morning. And they're like, I'll let her know. So about 20 minutes passes, and the same secretary calls back, and they're like, DA Jones wants you to know that you need to get your personal things out of the office. I was like, okay. So I don't know if it was related to that post. I don't know if it was because I was demanded to come into the office after hours and I wasn't able to drop everything that I was doing and appear. I haven't been given any answer. But I really just think everything that I've seen, someone that holds themselves out as a law and order candidate doesn't have a place in that office. And I think by being fired, that proves it. So I had always intended on being a career prosecutor. I was gonna stay in there until they, retired or wheeled me out. And I loved my job. Like every day, come in, I would be there early, I'd leave late, I'm always working hard. And it was great. I'd wake up, love my job. 2020 happens and COVID hits. And everything that I loved about being a prosecutor and being a trial attorney changed. Well, being in the courtroom stopped. All court proceedings stopped. They were not doing trials, they were not doing pleas, they were not doing motions. The only things we were doing were bond hearings. And basically what the point of the bond hearings were to let people out. Everyone. I have instance over instance. I had one that always sits with me where he was charged with drug trafficking and he had a violent history, had at least 7 felonies, several of them violent, act assaults, things where people get hurt. And came up for bond 2019 and everyone agreed, when I say everyone, I mean the judge and I. So the judge agreed this person is not suitable for a bond. And when you are a judge and you're deciding on bond, you're only allowed to look at 4 things. Are they a risk to reoffend? Are they a danger to the public? Are they going to flee? And are they going to go after a victim? Those are the only things you're allowed to consider. So 2019, using those 4 considerations, he was denied bond and stayed in, rightfully so. 2020 hits, and the law did not change. There's still only 4 reasons. But because COVID had hit, he was released. And he made it, I think, a month before he attacked someone with a pipe to the head, busting their orbital socket for the $20 in crack money that he was owed. And there was instance after instance of that. And, I like to joke because, you can either laugh or you can cry. And the kind of joke that I was saying is that, I finally got tired of being right so much that I decided that career prosecution wasn't where I could do the most good. I needed to not be the one asking someone else to do what was right. I needed to run and try to be the one to make the right decision. When I say law and order, I mean that as a judge and as an attorney that, it's really simple. You follow the law. So I tell people, I'm running on being ethical, experienced, efficient, and effective. And ethics for an attorney is the easiest thing in the world because there's volumes and volumes of black and white text that tells you what the law is and how to be ethical. And when I say, that I'm law and order, I mean that we're going to follow the laws that are on the books. So a judge, ideally, knows nothing about a case coming into a bond hearing. And what will usually happen is the prosecutor will start talking, and we want to go over the charges, their criminal history, the, aggravating factors. Is this a random incident with someone with mental health, or is this someone who knows a victim and has been torturing them for a long time? And big thing, criminal history. Do they have other cases pending? And you go over that. And then the defense counsel will come in and say, well, this is what they say is true, but also this person is, not charged yet, so you shouldn't hold that against them. And, they're not a flight risk. They live with their mom down the street, and, they didn't know the victim, so the victim's not going to get hurt. And it's their first charge. They're not going to reoffend and those kinds of things. And so the judge then makes a decision off of that. Well, new people start coming in under Shalina. I don't know what directive or anything that is, but a judge can only make a decision off of the evidence that they're given. And when a prosecutor comes in, they can either say, we don't oppose bond, or, he's got a bit of a criminal history, he's got 1 felony charge, but it's, That's all you need to know, judge. Whereas another prosecutor can come in and say, well, he's got one prior felony, which was murder, and he was just released out on parole, so that's a pretty big deal. And the evidence that's being presented to the judges was not adequate to have them determine that they should get a bond or have that bond denied. I think really the goal of the office had probably changed. I mean, it's, not probably, the goal of the office had changed. And our goal was, to me, did not seem focused on law and order. The goal of the office, to me, appeared to change from holding people accountable for their crimes and helping victims to only closing cases. And some of it is from COVID. There was a backlog. Also, I think it's just that the current administration thinks that certain things that are crimes should not be crimes.
Because we fall into the fallacy that we're better than others or that we're in a position to pass judgment on them, and we're not.
Being ethical as an attorney is one of the easiest things in the world because everything is written out for you. The district attorney is actually part of the executive branch, and it's their job to prosecute crimes. Crimes are defined by the legislator. So the legislator gets together and they decide, if you have more than 0.08% blood alcohol, you're a DUI. It is the DA's job to then take the laws that are set by the legislator, which, if all government is working perfectly are the will of the people, and prosecute those crimes. But a DA is not required to prosecute those crimes. It really becomes what they want to do and what cases they want to bring forward and get rid of. And the governing body over that, who would be the one to go to the DA and say, we don't like that you're not following the law or anything like that, there's no one over them except for the people that vote every 4 years. Mm-hmm. 2 or 3 people always quit in summer. And ever since I've been there, it's usually 2 or 3 people quit in summer. And I think a lot of it has to do with kids. I think, people want to move closer to parents or whatever reason. But there's always 2 or 3 a year. What I've seen now, as of Tuesday, I and another individual were fired. And it makes there is at least 8 open vacancies in the office. Now, I think that myself and the other individual that were fired were the first 2 that were fired. But for the other ones, it is that there was a situation created that made them, why am I going to wait for you to fire me? I'm going to go ahead and just find something on my own. So they'd move people from different courtrooms to different courtrooms, take things away from certain people, promote people that, had never tried a case over people who had tried so many cases that they can't remember. And just that type of revolving door just was created by the office culture and just, trying to... A lot of people are quitting throughout the country because, after COVID and everything, they're just sick and they're not going to take working at some place that doesn't make them happy. And I don't think that there are a lot of people that are happy up there. I'm Anthony Burton. I'm your law and order candidate for Quarters Court Judge, and I'm running on being ethical, experienced, efficient, and effective. In the ethics, we already talked about, it's really easy. You just follow the law, and the law needs to be followed when it goes to bonds. My experience is that I had been in that office since 2015. I've handled over 8,000 cases. And when I say over 8,000 cases, I mean I was going through, page marking through, and when I got to 8,000, I was like, no one is going to have handled this many criminal cases. I'm not going to keep count. But given the experience that I've had handling criminal matters, it's in thousands of bond hearings. It has to be. I can bring that perspective to recorder's court and be able to handle cases correctly. What this position is purely criminal, and a lot of people don't understand what recorder's court is. They think it's where you pay a traffic ticket because most people are law-abiding citizens. But Recorder's Court handles over 90% of all criminal cases in the county. Everything from a seatbelt violation to a murder. And it's a funnel court. So all those cases come in. They have what we call preliminary hearings, which is a judge wants to hear, officer, why did you do this arrest? Should you have arrested them? And then, most importantly, in my opinion, sets the bond. Now, those bonds can be reviewed and changed by a different judge in Superior Court, but I firmly believe if you don't do what's right at the beginning, you're destined to do what's wrong at the end. So I'm running for Recorder's Court because I am concerned about bonds, and I want to make sure that right at the beginning is where the right decision is being made. And if someone thinks it's the wrong decision, then they can go and they can change it later on, but that's on their conscience. I want to make sure that it's done right from the beginning. Efficient and effective, both of those really go hand in hand. It's just different things that I've done through the experience. I know that, you have someone that has a mental illness, and, I know different programs. We can do the Gateway program. We can put them through this program. I know if I see someone with severe drug addiction, and you can look at them and you can look at someone and tell if they have a horrible drug addiction. Mm-hmm. Like, they've got the open sores, stuff like that. And if you let them out, they will continue to use. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but the issue I had with the bonds was not just violent felons. So beforehand, someone would get arrested for drug charge. Maybe their second charge, maybe their third. And there's this idea now that no one should ever go to jail for having a drug addiction. And I'm the only candidate that has a record that you can review. Anyone can do an open records request and see every single case that I've ever done. And they would see that I've only ever put 2 people in prison for drugs. And it was because they asked. So pre-COVID, they come in, you see the open sores, you see the sunken eyes, all that kind of stuff, and be like, okay, this person needs a drying out period. And they wouldn't be in jail for forever, but they would probably do 30, 60, 90 days, probably be required to do what we call the 28-day program, which is a jail-sponsored drug rehab. And whether or not it would take, I don't know. But that drying out period would literally save lives. COVID hit, we weren't keeping anyone in. They were immediately getting back out, and it was probably so we would work 1 week in the office and we would work 1 week for home for the COVID reasons, keep the office at half capacity. And every time I would come in, I would have an obituary on my desk, because one of those people that I had said, do not let them out, they're in the throes of addiction, would have been let out and they had OD'd. And so, it's not just trying to stop violent people from getting out. I told you there's really no such thing as a victimless crime. Those drug addicts, they could have been saved, but we were so worried about anyone dying at the jail that we were okay with people dying in the streets with a needle in their arm. And again, 2 people my entire career ever went to prison for drugs, but I definitely tried to keep people in jail, and it was for their own good. And I can look at the numbers. I had almost no overdoses when I was saying, do not let this person out, make them do the 28-day program. And I had countless. It had to be 2 or 3 dozen that I filed in the first beginning of, I think it was March or April, when we started shutting everything down, and then over the next 6 months when everyone was really worried about COVID. And not a single person, as far as I know, has died of COVID to date in the jail. But I'm saying I had 2, 3, 4 dozen of these, and I was one of 8 attorneys that were handling those cases. So take the amount that I had and times it by 8, and those are the amount of deaths that we have that were there to prevent people from dying from COVID. So what I really hope is that people hear what I have to say and agree with it and vote for me. Anyone that I've met and been able to talk with and be like, this is why I'm running. I'm not running as a stepping stone. I'm not running for this or that or for ulterior motives. Up and until recently, I already had a job. I didn't need a new job. but I declared before that. But you have me, and I run on law and order, and I want to do what's best for Chatham County. And as I've said, Recorder's Court's a purely criminal court. So you also have another candidate that's running. We'll put him at door B. His name is Sanders, and he's a civil attorney. So I have done 8,000 criminal cases, plus I've done thousands of cases in Recorder's Court, thousands in state court, thousands in Superior Court, and there's just not anything that I haven't seen. Now, I'm always shocked with a new story will come across my desk where I'm like, that is a new one, but the charges don't change. An aggravated assault is an aggravated assault. Shoplifting is a shoplifting. And I have seen every form of crime, violation of the law possible, and I'm familiar with them. And I can go in there and look at, what is this? What's the officer saying? I know most of the officers. I know, this guy makes good cases. Let me ask a couple more questions of this one just to make sure everything's fine. And I just really have the experience for a position that's purely criminal. Door C, we have a criminal defense attorney, Huffman. So, prosecutor, law and order, defense attorney, take that with what you will. But like I was saying, there are no, good guys and bad guys, but he's coming from the perspective of a defense attorney. And, defense attorneys also, if they have, 100 cases, their office is packed. I have never once, since being a prosecutor in Chatham County, had a caseload lower than 100, lower than 200 or 300. At the time that I was let go from the office, I was actually running our entire courtroom because I didn't have a trial partner, and they had moved my lead attorney to another department. So I had well over 600 cases, and I handled them all. Everything was ready. It's a lot more work, but we end up getting the work done. I make sure that it gets done. So you've got me, thousands of cases under my belt. I've seen everything. I've worked in Recorder's Court countless amount of times that I've handled cases in Recorder's Court, every aspect of Recorder's Court. You've got one that's a civil attorney, and you've got one that's a criminal attorney. If I could somehow get a message to every single voter who votes in Chatham County, I would ask them to do the research. So I think a lot of people may not care about local elections. I think they see who's president, who's governor, who's lieutenant governor, and then they don't care. If they could do the research, I think most people would agree with me and would agree that crime is on the rise, that people who have committed, their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th felony don't need to be let out to have their 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. And that we need to follow the law exactly how it's written.